Hopefully we're all doing well. Welcome to SmartCon. Welcome to early morning, day 2 of SmartCon. We've got a great presentation for you today. So, when they gave me this slot, they said, hey, Patrick, you have 15 minutes to do a talk on governance, and I'm not known for my 15-minute talk, so we'll see how this goes. So today we're going to be talking about voting, distributed governance, decentralized governance, and we're really just going to be painting a picture of what the current DAO and governance setup looks like, and some practices about what people are mainly doing, and then a look to the future on what we should do and how we can move forward. So for those of you who do not know me, I'm Patrick Collins, developer advocate at Chainlink Labs, and I live and breathe smart contracts. So I tried to make this a little bit less technical because we only have 15 minutes, but if I get a little bit codey, please forgive me. So yeah, so here's what we're going to be talking about today. And we want to start off by talking about with what we're trying to do. And when I say what we're trying to do, I really mean what we're trying to do with DAOs and decentralized governance. Because something that I think we need to focus on when we're building these things is DAOs are a solution, right? DAOs are a solution to some problem, and we need to understand what the problem is in order to implement, in order to have the solution be valuable and make sense. So what are we actually trying to do with DAOs? And which begs the question, of course, what is a DAO? And this will also give us a little bit of prep onto what the current meta is and what these are for. And DAOs have kind of got a bit of an interesting rap as of recently. A DAO technically stands for a decentralized autonomous organization. Decentralized, of course, meaning no centralized authority. Autonomous, meaning the logic is written in code and it's just automated. You don't need to have some human intervention. And then an organization, obviously, which is a collective of people with a similar mission. Although recently, DAO has kind of turned into this word that means kind of whatever you want it to mean, right? We've seen a lot of groups kind of just slap the word DAO onto their organization and be like, yeah, we're a DAO. And it's like, well, I don't know if you're decentralized. I don't know if you're really autonomous. I don't know if you're really a DAO. But sure, at the moment, we're kind of giving people the benefit of the doubt. But as we continue down this journey of smart contracts and building these decentralized organizations, hopefully we'll probably come up with a better idea with a line of what is and what isn't a DAO. But for the moment, it's kind of this granular bit with the more decentralized, the more autonomous it is, the more DAO-y it is. So that's a DAO. And I think instead of asking the question, though, what is a DAO, a better question that we can ask is, what problem does a DAO solve? Right? What is the issue that we have this solution of DAOs? What is the problem that they're solving? And to me, this goes back to the entire reason that we're here. The problem that DAOs solve goes back to the purpose of smart contracts. And if you've seen Sergey's talks, which I hope you all have, he talked a lot about trust minimized agreements. Building these systems where you don't have this counterparty risk, where you don't have to trust some single entity, some centralized entity. So to me, DAOs solve this problem of collective decision making and coordination with censorship-resistant, credible fairness, no single human point of failure, right? That's the problem that they solve. We've seen time and time again in our modern days where there's some type of censorship comes in and ruins some type of credible fairness, ruins some type of collective decision-making. Maybe there's a power threat that comes in and coerces people to vote a certain way or choose a certain way. And this is the problem that DAOs solve. They solve this issue of coordination and improvement of collective of protocols in a decentralized manner. And the good thing about this is that this is something that we, as a community of human beings, have been looking at for a very long time. Governance and voting and political structures have been around for thousands of years, right? We aren't the first people to have approached this problem. And I think that's something else that we need to keep in mind when we're building these structures is that a lot of what we're doing isn't that new. We have a technology, these DAOs, this trust minimized technology that allows us to build these systems much better, but the actual political science behind these isn't new. We've done studies on republics and democracy and fascism and dictatorship, and these are all political structures that we can recreate on the blockchain. The good thing is we have the opportunity to make them better, bigger, stronger, because we have this censorship-resistant, this trust-minimized technology. And just a quick offshoot, there's been some really interesting discussion as of recent of whether or not these DAOs should be more come from political science or from corporate governance, right? Should we make these systems where there's a hierarchy, kind of like a corporate governance, where you have a CEO, you have a chair, and then you have people who, shareholders of the company. Should that be what a DAO is, or should a DAO be more kind of direct democracy, where everyone can participate, there's a more unstructured, where the collective direct democracy-ness is what coordinates it more. And really, one of the things that I think is so cool about this space, especially when it comes to DAOs, is that we're seeing stuff like this happen every day. If you've been following the news, pretty much every week, some new something happens with DAOs, right? We see regulators get involved with DAOs. We see a new type of DAO come out. We see a new way to vote, a new way to coordinate, and we as a community of builders are just constantly pushing this forward and doing new innovations. So we've got a lot of really cool stuff as a community that we're building. So now let's get into the meat of it. So if you're looking to build a DAO, what should your governance structure look like? And what are the most popular means as of right now that people are building? And an easy way to kind of see what the current meta of DAOs is to kind of look at most of these no-code solutions. So Aragon, Join Colony, DAO House, these are some tools that if you want, you can just go to their websites, click Build a DAO, and they will basically launch a DAO for you without you having to write any code, and they're really cool. And if you look at these, they have a lot of the most popular frameworks for building a DAO. Now, the kind of like level 1 DAO is something called like your multi-sig wallet-based DAO. Now, this is usually just a very small collective of people who are on a multi-signature wallet. A multi-signature wallet, of course, being a wallet that takes multiple signatures, multiple people to sign in order for any transaction to go through. And we've seen a lot of DAOs have maybe 9 people, 10 people, 7 people, 6 people on them. And technically, this would be a DAO, right? Because it's decentralized to the point of 5 people. It's autonomous because the multi-sig wallet is on-chain, and it's an organization because it's a group of 5 people. Now, the pros of this is you can move very quickly, which is good, right? Especially in the beginning of us building our protocols, we want to be able to iterate really quickly on our ideas. And this is a really common setup for something called emergency powers, right? If your DAO is about to implode because of some weird political situation or market situation and you need to do something quick, multi-sigs are a great reserve to have to do that because they move much quicker than other structures that we're going to see soon. The cons of this, obviously, are it's way more centralized, right? If you have 4 or 5 people on a multi-sig, you kind of don't have that much decentrality, right? You have 4 people who are borderline central points of failures, right? Each one of them has 25% chance of being the one who brings your DAO collapsing. So, and one of the most popular DAO tools is Gnosis Safe, phenomenal tool for building this emergency power or building a DAO that has this more centralized setup. What I'm calling level 2, and this is the most popular DAO setup and the DAO setup most of you are familiar with, is this ERC20 coin-weighted type DAO. This is where you buy a token like an Uniswap, Aave, Maker token, and you can use this token to vote in the smart contract on chain, right? And the way it works usually is 1 token is 1 vote, right? So it's a really simple setup, very similar to a corporate governance setup, where you have shares of a company. Now, shareholders don't normally vote, but this is kind of the draws inspiration from that. The pros of this, obviously, is it's way more decentralized, right? Instead of having multi-sig with 4 people, now the free market kind of can dictate how many people are part of your DAO, right? And the more people who buy your token, the more people who can vote on your protocols. It's very easy to understand. Like I said, it's corporate governance-like, but this obviously has a ton of cons. And one of the biggest cons here is this is considered a plutocracy, which is where the rich get to decide the outcome of the protocol. Because if you make your voting such in a way where if you buy the tokens, whoever buys the tokens can make the decisions, then okay, you're basically saying you can buy votes, you can buy the decision-making power of these protocols. And there's a long, long, long list of where this can be an issue, right? This can create this conflict of interest between token holders of the protocol and actually the future benefit of the users of the protocol. Because if some user buys these tokens and maybe they want the tokens to fall in value, maybe they buy all the tokens and short them or do some weird financial trades, that can incentivize them to act poorly towards the actual protocol. And this also has issues with direct democracy being kind of this uncoordinated or structureless system. That can be issues, that can create issues of coordination, and it can be slow to get everyone to get on and actually vote. But this is level 2, more decentralized, a little easier to understand, but it has some of these issues. And if you take anything away from this, for you developers and you DAO builders out here, we as a community need to stop defaulting to this. An easy thing for people to do is they say, okay, cool, I'm gonna make a protocol. The way I'm gonna monetize it is I'm gonna slap a governance token on it. Boom, sell the governance token, make money, hooray. We need to stop doing this. This system, this governance, ERC20 governance system works great for like investment DAOs or some type of DAO where having a plutocracy is cool, but it definitely doesn't work for every type of governance structure. For example, a public goods DAO, maybe it makes a little bit less sense to have a token where you can just buy the voting power on. However, at the same time, like I said, this is the most popular structure. If you do want to make something like this, the Open Zeppelin Wizard is a fantastic tool to use to kind of build like a minimal DAO. I've also done some videos on this as well, and there's just a lot of good resources on how to build a governance structure like this. So stop defaulting to it, but it's okay to use. You just really want to think of, okay, is it cool for this system to be a plutocracy? Do I want whales to come in, buy all the voting power for this protocol? So that's just something you need to keep in mind when building your DAOs. What I'm going to be calling level 3 here is NFT Based, where it's one person or one address, one vote. This is more similar to kind of like traditional republic democracy, like United States government voting. This is more political governance-like. And this is basically where you get an NFT, you get some type of token unique to you, and that's what you can use to go out and do voting. Now, the cons of this, obviously, are that it's really, really hard in blockchain to have a Sybil resistance system like this. It's very easy for me to go out and make 10,000 addresses, have each of them mint one of these NFTs, and then go vote, right? So if you want to build something like this, you usually need to have some type of fight against this, which is where kind of the latest iteration of voting comes into play, which is called Soulbound NFTs, where you can't transfer your NFTs. Soulbound doesn't solve the problem of Sybil resistance, but sorry, I'll clarify that in a second. Soulbound NFTs are where you have one NFT tied to your wallet. You can't transfer these NFTs. And this is great because now you can have an NFT where your reputation is always going to be you, right? Because you can't transfer it, you can't sell it. That NFT identifies solely you. Now, some of the cons here, though, are it's still, if I go out and make a ton of addresses, can I just mint a ton of NFTs? Maybe. This is still a little bit better, though, because if your token can never leave you, if your token cannot be transferred, then you can do stuff like reputation, where it's like, okay, this address did like 10 amazing things, so we'll give them 10 reputation points. If you go out and you create 1,000 more addresses, make that NFT, they won't have that reputation that single Soulbound NFT has. So this is still a better way to kind of get that. Now, something that I didn't really mention here, and I should have put a slide for this as well, is that one question that might come to your mind is, okay, well, if there's this issue of Sybil resistance and anyone going out and just making a ton of addresses, why don't we create some type of proof of humanity, some type of connection to your NFT that identifies you? And this is great if you can solve that, but it's a really difficult problem to solve. Because if you do identify somebody, then that makes the voting worse. A good example of that is if I know you're voting a way I don't like, I now can have the ability to go out and basically attack you or coerce you into voting a different way. So a lot of these pressures can arise if you have some type of proof of humanity. There's a whole slew of other rationale there, but I'm already kind of at my 15-minute mark. So something that's important to understand is that all governance choices have trade-offs, right? All those different governance methods, you saw they all had pros and cons, right? So you want to keep them in mind whenever you're building your protocols. And if you are thinking, okay, cool, well, I want to maximally decentralize, I want to have this super, super sick protocol, most of these systems, most of these DAOs start off maybe with more structure and less decentralization and iterate over time. So if you are looking to build a DAO, you don't have to worry about making it perfect from day one. Pretty much every single successful DAO has started off being a more centralized version, slowly getting more decentralized as time goes on. It's really, really hard to scale quickly in a structureless or decentralized manner, right? It's much easier to start centralized, slowly iterate over time to become more and more decentralized. Now, for voting mechanism, for those of you looking to build one of these systems, there are usually two different ways that you can have these voting happen, and simply they're on-chain and off-chain, right? If all of your voting happens on-chain, the pros of this is that you have this security and decentralization of the blockchain. The cons are it's incredibly expensive. If you do one vote a week and it costs $1 to vote, right, based off of current gas prices, and you have a 1,000 person or a 10,000 person DAO, you're basically charging your community $10,000 a week just to vote, right? Which sucks, right? You don't want to have to charge people to vote. So what a lot of people have been doing is they're moving a lot of that voting off-chain. Now, there are good and bad ways to do this. We've seen a lot of people do it through a centralized solution, which is really scary to me, because if you do all your voting off-chain, then there's the ability for that to get changed or removed or whatever. But obviously, the pros of this are that it's much cheaper. And one of the most popular setups for doing this is some combination of a Snapshot and IPFS. So you go to the Snapshot UI, you emit your vote. What's really cool is they'll save that vote on IPFS, which is a decentralized storage layer. And then later on, they'll use some mechanism to basically tally the votes in IPFS, put it back on chain. The scary thing to me is that this is, like I said, it's a centralized vector. Snapshot putting stuff on IPFS, they could just stop putting stuff on IPFS, and then the tallying, putting back on chain, you could just say, oh, well, you know, I won, right? You could lie about the tally. So something that I really want to see, something that I'm incredibly excited for, is somebody to build the Chainlink connection here, because this is exactly what Chainlink is built to do. To the blockchain, the tally of votes is what? It's just data, right? And that's exactly what Chainlink is perfect at. So if you're coming to the fall hackathon in October 14th, which you all should, if somebody builds this, you may win a prize. Just that's your hackathon alpha drop there. And there's, like I was saying, there's the future of DAOs just keeps evolving. So if you have an idea for a way to make this better, do it. Because we're just constantly seeing all these systems get better with voting. One of the ones that I think is really cool is there's a book out there called Radical Markets by Eric Posner and Glenn Weil, where they talk a lot about quadratic voting, which is a better solution to one person, one vote. They don't talk about Chainlink plus IPFS plus some type of on-chain thing, but in my mind, that is like an amazing setup that I would love to see people use. They talk a little bit about proof of humanity, and then they also talk about these Soulbound NFTs. So grabbing a lot of the learnings from quadratic voting and using that in our governance setups would make it so that not only we have a governance structure, a DAO that solves this issue of coordination, but is a better system than what we currently have for voting. One of the things that I'm terrified about with this whole smart contract blockchain thing is that we're just going to remake the same mistakes we've made in real life and just stick them on blockchain. One of the advantages that we have with all that we're doing is we have the ability to fix and improve our current governance structures and our current voting setups, and that's what I'm praying that we do. And we have the opportunity to do that with stuff like quadratic voting, censorship-resistant voting, And I'm really hoping that we build it and that we do it. So it's up to us. It's up to the builders. I hope to see you all at the Hackathon, October 14th. And I also hope to see you all at the Hacker House on Friday. And thank you all for coming, and I hope you learned something.